Here he is. So, we see. Hola, ¿qué tal, Tomas Bruno? All good?
Good, thank you.
So sorry for pulling you in at 4 o'clock. Yeah, I need coffee. Okay, that's exactly it. So you know that, Tomas Bruno, that's the mean thing when we just ask you, can you do a nice small presentation for us? And since you're a nice guy, you just agree without knowing that the price is so high, you have to wake up during the night. The good news is I got the kickback from history. I was waking up this night by an alert by the police from 2 to 3. So that I had to pay that for being so mean and asking you to wake up at 4 o'clock. So that's probably my part of the soup I had to drink. So Tomas Bruno Tomas Bruno Edelmann is a 5th generation farmer from Mexico, from Chiapas, and he's going to present us why it's so important to grow diverse coffee varieties and use different coffee processing techniques. So very much different to the traditional way of coffee farming, to just have one big variety, one big lot, and do all the same, to have huge amounts of one coffee, which is much easier to do because you don't have to select and think and whatever. Tomas Bruno now has the challenge to have climate change, to have lousy coffee prices, and that's why he had to come up with a very, very special strategy to keep up the tradition and the work that 4 generations had been doing before. And Tomas Bruno, we are very thankful you're here, and I'd just like to say the stage is yours.
Thank you, Stefan. Good morning. Very early morning here. Thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure to give the presentation. And what a good day to start as early as now, no? So we can use the whole day. I'm going to share my screen here to show my presentation. Okay, I think there it is. Yeah, so my presentation is about especially about do you hear me? I guess.
Excellent. All good. All great.
Okay. About the point of view of a farmer and all the farmers that I know. I have been in Guatemala, in Colombia, in other farms in Mexico, and we all share around the same kind of thinking about how are we growing. And so this is especially a farmer's point of view. How are we doing coffee? So, okay, the title, why it is so important to grow diverse coffee varieties and use different coffee processing. Like Dr. Schwartz said that, okay, why not just grow one single variety and just do one process? So we simplify the operation. The problem is that, like, it's not so simple. Like we need to also think about what is going to happen if we do that. Like all the coffee that we do is going to be like only one, and we probably will only find one customer, and then there are very much diseases in the coffee, and if you have only one variety, well, it will be very vulnerable, no? So to start with, for a farmer's point of view, what do we understand as a coffee variety? We can say this. So for a farmer, when we talk about a variety, we always say, okay, so how much does it produce? And after that, then we say, so what is the flavor, and who are your customers? What do they like? And then also, how many people do you have to pick the coffee when it's ready? And when are you having the harvest? And and what about the diseases in your farm? So first point, the productivity. The varieties are shown to have, depending on where are you located. I'm going to show you statistics from the Costa Rican Institute. For example, here you can see the list of many varieties These are mostly Brazilian ones where you can see the very long names. They have a very diverse collection of varieties, which are Dr. Sheffield will know that these come from very narrow genetical they come from the very same genes, like from the Bourbons and the Típicas. In Latin America, we don't have much diversity. So whenever we have a new variety, it normally it's from the cousin, no, like it's from the same family. But still we can see that they produce some of them much more than the others. So farmers are going now for these ones who produce some more. The Caturra is getting very hard to grow on the Catuai because all the pests, and it doesn't produce much. But we still try to keep some of them because they are the old ones and they are unique. So here you can have a good example of the production. And just for another example about the flavor, how they also are the flavor is heavily influenced by the coffee variety. Don't listen to the cue because it's only like an example. This was the results of some coppers. Doesn't matter if they are Q or if they are my neighbor. It's the example is that all the coffee varieties they gave a different flavor. All of this. So for a farmer, when they are gonna use a variety, they're gonna plant it. We also think that, okay, so what does my customer needs for coffee? What do they want? Many customers now, many roasters, they now find the difference in the variety and how does it taste. So we gotta pay attention to that. So now we gotta pay attention to this, the productivity and what does the customer want. Perhaps the customer wants a variety like the geisha, like it's now very common. But the problem with the geisha is that for farming is not so good, doesn't produce much, and it's also difficult. So we gotta think about those two things. If it's worth it to plant a big plantation of geisha, how much can we sell? How much if we are gonna be able to maintain it, or we just go with the big producers ones, but perhaps the flavor is not so desirable. I'm gonna continue now about the ripening time. Now, this is the third factor that we look for, because we still pick the coffee by hand. And there's a lot of coffee to pick. So, for example, in Finca Hamburgo, we need like around 250 people just to pick the harvest. We normally employ around 70, 80 to do the other work of the plantation, but to pick, we need 250. And right now, the people they are finding other types of employment, and there are many reasons that now we are getting it's getting very hard to find people. So what are we gonna do? Like, if all the coffee ripens at the same time, then it might be very difficult. So what is this new strategy? If we plant different varieties, we also can look at the timing of the ripening, which means that we can have we can choose 3 that ripen at a different time, and we will need much less people. So, for example, here I have a very good example of of 4 varieties that they are going to ripen at different times. So, for example, if we start the harvest, let's say in October, so in October, November, this variety will be in its prime time to pick. This variety not so. Also, this one's not. So we can focus our time picking these ones and waiting for these ones to ripen. So this will give us the time, and with much less people, we can harvest the good quality and the perfect timing of. This is the perfect timing of picking the coffee, where we will get the best quality, the best flavors. So I hope you can see with these pictures you can see how important it is now to know when the coffee varieties they ripen, and what is the benefit of having the varieties. Also, we need to know the timing of the coffees, because we plant different varieties, but if they still ripen at the same time, then well, we're in trouble. Here is an example, a written example. So if we have one variety, we need 100 people to pick like 3,000 kilos. This is just an example. It's just for understanding. If we have 2 varieties that ripen at different times, we just need 50 people to pick the same 3,000 kilos. So that is about the ripening. And now the other very important topic is that we have a lot of pests, and the varieties respond differently to the pests. Here is another example that I found from the Costa Rican Coffee Institute. For example, susceptibility of the pests. 100 is the most susceptibility. If we have 100, the number 100, then it's very susceptible, and the variety gets very sick. So the Catuai, we have a lot of experience of the Catuai in the Finca Hamburgo. Now is very susceptible to all the diseases. So we are now little by little diversifying the varieties, and we're gonna plant more resistant ones. What I wanna say is, as you can see, a variety is not resistant to all the diseases. For example, this variety, the Obata, is very resistant to Roya, coffee leaves rust, but this resistance makes it very vulnerable to this one, the Ojo de Gallo. So here you can see that you cannot be resistant to all the varieties, but a farmer has to know what is the most dangerous disease in his area. For example, where we are located, the most dangerous are the Ojo de Gallo and the Roya. So we have to think about that. We don't get much about this one, the Rite, and we don't get much about Myrotecium. So we are not worried about this, but perhaps in other regions like in Brazil, which the climatic conditions are very different, they must have very different diseases. So when we choose a variety to work with, to plant it, then we have to look at this information, and from here we can see what is convenient for us. And so we have to play with this now. Here you can have an example of this is the coffee leaf rust. Normally, a variety that is resistant to the coffee leaves rust is very susceptible to the Ojo de Gallo. And the Ojo de Gallo can be very aggressive also, and it can just almost kill a plant. So this is about the diseases. And now I'm gonna continue with the different coffee processings. in the old times, the farms were focusing only on one processing. For example, here in Latin America, we were focusing in fully washed because the fully washed it requires much less space to dry the coffees. When we pick the coffees, we just pulp them and we ferment them, and we do the fully washed. With the fully washed, we can use much less space and much less energy to dry the coffee. And the fully washed also requires a lot of water. So here I have in a sentence, I have said that a farmer chooses processing basis on available resources such as energy to dry the coffee and water to process it. And now the roasters, customers, they like to have different flavors from the coffee, and the best way to get to these flavors is by the fermentation or by the processing of the coffees. So, for example, if we do a natural processing, which we do now, like we started doing the natural processing in Finca Hamburgo in 2015, so in the crop 2015 to 16. It was very new to us. It was our first try because we wanted to attain fruity flavors. And in order to do that, we put them in the sun first. But here we have a very high humidity. Here you can see the picture where we are drying the naturals in the patios. But we cannot do all the drying processing in the patios because it will take like 30 days, and we don't have space for that. So we only use 3 days in the patio and then put them in the dryer. And from there we achieve very interesting flavors. Some countries like in Ethiopia and other regions who are much drier than here, perhaps they use only they dry only in the sun. So what happens here that we need much more energy to dry, but much less water. Actually, no water at all, because we don't pulp. The flavors that we get from here are super good fruitiness and sweet, complex. Also, we risk to get some winey flavors sometimes. And good thing about this is that the customers are really, really into the naturals because it gives them much more new flavors to try and to offer. What happens with the pulp natural? Here in the pulp natural, we need a lot of small quantity of water to process it because they are pulped, and then they are just dried with the mucilage. They require a little bit less energy to dry. Here we can see a picture of pulp natural in Finca Hamburgo, and they give also a sweet flavor. And we also did this experiment in 2015 and 16. It was also good. It was also successful, and we achieved also sweet coffees. And now we have here the fully washed. This is the traditional method that we use in Finca Hamburgo and in most of Latin America. What happens here is that we can process a huge amount. We are very known to produce these coffees around the world, and this is the most common process now, the most clean flavor. But we are now, as this is so much common in Latin America, then if we want to differentiate from now our coffees to offer more variety to the customers, that's why we are moving towards the naturals and the pulp naturals as much as we can, because we have the conditions to do the fully washed much more, and the infrastructure to do the fully washed is perfect. We can do it very good, but now we are also wanting to conquer these new customers who want these more different tastes. So the fully washed requires the least amount of energy because it doesn't dry with the cherry, it doesn't dry with the mucilage, it just dries with the bean and the parchment. So it gets dry much faster. So that is the importance of processing different coffees. In our case, in Finca Hamburgo, it's about reaching to new markets that want different flavors. Here I have, in a very small and simple sentence, now the combination of these circumstances defines the choice of a variety and coffee processing. So now, to combine all these factors that I've been talking about, a farmer has to think of all of this, and in the end, it will give us. We can talk about. It will give us what are we gonna work with the variety and processes. So we have to think about the rainfall intensity and the humidity of the area. This, in the case of Finca Hamburgo, it's very rainy. So if it's very rainy, okay, we can do fully washed, and we can also do the other processes, but the fully washed is gonna be the best option, the easiest. So we can do big quantities of this. And if it's very rainy, then we have the rainy climate diseases. So this gives us the variety that we want to work with. For example, híbrido de Timor, but we have to be very careful from the humidity also. Then the quantity of the coffee pickers that we have. If we have a lot of coffee pickers, then okay, yeah, then we can have only one or two varieties, but no, that is not the case. Now, everywhere in Latin America, we are having much less people to work with, so we definitely have to diverse the varieties and that they ripen at different times. And the energy available, right? If we are a shade-grown coffee farm, in the case of Finca Hamburgo, we have the shade trees that gives us wood to dry the coffees. That is very important. But many farms, they don't have shade, so they don't have wood to process. They only use perhaps the wood from the pruned coffee trees and the parchment of the coffee, but that is not enough. So some farms have to use gas. So we have to. So they have to think about where if they're gonna have enough energy. By the way, that's one good reason to have shade grown coffees, because it will give you energy to dry the coffees, and also it will give you much better soil conditions for the farm. Okay. Here I have a small example which I have talked about. That híbrido de Timor resists most of the fungi pests from the humid areas, and in the humid areas we can do easily the fully washed because it requires less energy to dry in these humid areas. Another small example, very simple, of ripening. Here I have the picture of the fully washed. Here you can see that we only need to dry parchment and bean. Takes less energy to dry. Choosing a variety is an important decision because it's gonna be with the farmer for 20 years. So it is very important that we choose a very good one. But thanks that we have now a lot of information from available, then we can now, like most of the time, we can do a good decision with all the information available now. We also have to talk with other farmers and what are their experiences of their own with the varieties that they have and sharing the information. For example, I have here the case of Finca Hamburgo. We have intense rains for 9 months, very humid. We have not so many people to work with. And we also have customers who want specialty coffee. So that's why we have been trying new coffee varieties and new coffee processing. And I will say that we have been successful in that, and we are going to continue doing different processings. We now have around 25 different varieties, of which 6 of them we farm in a big scale. And in the long term, that is going to give us a sustainable base of customers and a sustainable work conditions in our farm, thanks to this diversity of varieties and processings. In a large scale, we have the bourbon coffee variety. It's a early ripening. Catuai, it's a late. The Sarchimor is between early and late, and it's also coffee leaf rose resistant. The Marogojib variety is very well appreciated in the coffee markets because of the flavor and the big bean that it has. These are large scale, and 20 more varieties that we are having in a small scale just for observation, and we can decide to do a bigger plantation of them if it's necessary. For us, the best option to process is the fully washed because it requires less energy to dry, and we have, thanks God, we have abundance of water here in this part of the world. And we do the natural and the pulp natural for the flavors that the customers want. So this is now the end of my presentation. I want to do acknowledgments to my father, Tomas Edelmann Blas. I want to thank Dr. Stefan Schwartz to showing me the different possibilities to do the processing special, and some engineers from Latin America that have shown me a lot and taught me a lot about the varieties around Guatemala, Costa Rica, Colombia, and countless of other coffee farmers that I have met and talked with. Every small and big farmer have a piece of precious knowledge to share. I just want to thank all of them. So now this is the end of my presentation, and thank you very much for listening. So
thank you very much, Bruno. This was a very great presentation. Thank you for that. And again, sorry for waking you up at 4, and we continue as mean as we are. We have another victim also. We've seen him. That's Andres Quintanilla. So now it's 5 o'clock, so it's 1 hour later. But I think he also had to wake up. So let's go for some questions. We have one question. Like Tomas Bruno, how many people are working? You said like 250 people are working there. And the question now we had is how many hectares are those people working on the 250?
280 hectares to be precise. Stefan, I'm talking about Finca Hamburgo. And for example, Finca Chiripa, it's 300 hectares, but we have only around 250 because we have a reserve a forest reserve, and in Chiripa we only employ around 200 people. And I'm talking about only the harvest time, when we need the people. This is when farms need a lot of people. So only for the harvest in Finca Hamburgo, 250 for 280 hectares.
That's a big amount of number, and also a huge responsibility. But I know you're doing all a great job there, and I am also convinced with the new projects that you are planning to do, there will be even much better situations and even more sustainable ways for everyone to be working. And I think in the next few months and years, we are going to hear a lot coming also as innovation impulses from your farm. And I also have to say that the natural coffees you've been doing the past years are really outstanding and very unique. I remember the natural specifically, and how nervous everyone was in the beginning, but I feel they are really unique. And when we see responses, when we do cup tastings, and we hear what people are doing, they're really amazing.
Thanks.
I think there is a question from Dr. Schäfer coming up, if I'm right informed here by our team.
Yes.
So please go ahead.
Okay. Just one question for all of you. How do you choose new varieties? So is it just local? So you talk to other farmer and they say, just try this one? Or do you already use platforms like this one to exchange knowledge about new varieties international? So even with coffee farmers in Asia, for example.
Yes, we are very blessed that we have a big network of coffee connoisseurs. For example, I know you, Dr. Schäfer, I know Dr. Schwartz, and I know Andres Quintanilla and the other worldwide farmers. And so I can talk with you and share information with you, and I can take a decision of what variety, if to plant. At the local level, the local farmers, they choose the variety with how they talk with the neighbors, and how are they, what are their knowledge about the variety. And we also use the information from the coffee institutes that they publish. They have magazines, they have websites where they talk about the varieties, and all the farmers, they look for these crucial things like productivity, diseases, ripening time, all what I talk about in the presentation. So those are the criteria that we choose to plant. And of course, sometimes we can make mistakes. So we can normally we start with a small plantation, no? And then if we see it's good, then we grow bigger ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Excellent. There's two more questions that came in. So this is a real interactive thing here. I'm getting it from Julian Thomas, that is looking over all the chats and everything. There is one question from Andrea Trevisan. The question is, Tomas Bruno, do you find a difference in terms of tastes in the traditional varieties that have been growing some years ago and today? So that's probably a climate questions. And especially also, do you find also differences in terms of taste from those traditional varieties to the new varieties that you are producing now? So that's, if I understand it right, like two questions.
Yes, definitely. The old varieties, they taste, I don't know if it's because the trees are very old, they are around 40 years old, and the new varieties, they are like 10-year-old. But for example, I can tell that the Bourbon and the Maragojib and the Catuai, they are old varieties. They are over 40 years old. They do taste different than the Sarchimor. Definitely. So we have two questions here. Is it because the trees are 40-year-old? The roots are deeper into the soil. They extract deep nutrients, or if it's because of the variety. So we perhaps when the new varieties are have deep roots, we can tell if it's because of that or if it's because of the variety. But right now we could say that the varieties have a different taste.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much. And the last question, and then I have to leave this place. So then Julian Thomas is going to overtake because I have to speak on the other stage. So you see, it's really interactive. There is a question from Angela Braun. She would like to know how is the distribution between the preparation of the harvest in fully washed and the naturals, so like the correlation, like probably how many % are you doing naturals and how many you do in fully washed. And before you answer, let me just say again, thank you very much for joining us here. I have to leave to the other stage, and also thank you, Andres. I'm going to rejoin all of you guys later and hopefully see you also in some other chats. So this is the beauty of parallel life events. So Julian Thomas is now going to overtake, right, Mr. Thomas?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so I'm off. Thank you all, and see you soon. I'm jumping forward to the other stage. Bye-bye.
Bye. I'm going to answer your question, Angela. We now we do 80% fully washed because we have the infrastructure to do the fully washed more easily. The other 15%, I will say, we do natural, and 5% we do pulp natural. But if we could increase the naturals and the pulp naturals, I think we will do it. We are thinking of increasing the percentage.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bruno. I think we went through all the questions. Thanks for taking the time in the early morning. I hope you will find some more sleep or take the day as it comes. I would hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Thank you very much for taking the time. If you like, please stay with us because Andres Quintanilla is now going to prepare his presentation. He's already here. I think, Andres, hey, you can activate your mic now. So
it was my
morning
pleasure.
For everybody, or good afternoon.
Right, Tomas Bruno, what was your question?
No, I'm just saying goodbye, and it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for listening, and welcome, Andres. Buenos días.
Thanks, Bruno. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.